1967, classified as a first felony offender. Offenses: forcible rape 3 counts, second degree kidnapping 3 counts, forcible rape. Sentencing date March 13, 2001. Sentenced to a total of 30 years. Parole date August 1st, 2021. Good time November 6, 2024. Full term May 1st, 2030. Is this information correct, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Marabella.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lee, how old are you, sir?
54,
And Mr. Lee, how long have you been in prison?
21 and a half years, sir.
Okay, so how old were you when you went to prison?
32.
And you were a policeman at the time, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
How long had you been a policeman?
About 10 years, from 1990 to 2000.
And what was your history as a policeman? You went through an academy
Yes, sir.
and on the force, what positions did you hold as a police officer?
I was a field training officer. I was an accident investigator. And during the time I was arrested, I was a detective on a violent offender warrant squad, and I was a member of the SWAT team.
And why did you become a police officer?
To help people, sir.
So what went wrong here?
Actually, what went wrong was, I think, a problem that I had way before that. I considered myself at the time to be a ladies' man, and I was a womanizer.
Well, I mean, you know, there are a lot of people that consider themselves to be ladies' men, but don't go out and rape women and use a position of trust to do that with. So tell me what you mean by that.
Well, I used my authority and money to solicit women for sex, and pretty much, thinking that I was a ladies' man. That's the method that I pretty much use when approaching women or trying to flirt with them or whatever I feel that I needed to do to probably get in their company at the time.
So what do you think about all of that now?
Well, it's a disgrace, and I'm very sorry for my actions, and I know I shouldn't have done it. But at the time, I just felt that I was a person that wanted to satisfy my own needs at the expense of another person, and I just lost myself, sir.
Well, tell me a little bit about some of the programs that you've taken while you've been in prison. Now, I understand that you've taken, your prison record is sketchy because it appears that you didn't take sex offender treatment, but then you did. So you've taken all 4 phases of sex offender treatment?
Yes, sir.
Tell me what you've learned about the sex offender through your sex offender treatment.
Well, the first thing that I learned about the sex offender program was understanding the risk factors, triggers that would make a person do the things that they do in the way that we think. And some of the main risk factors that really opened up my eyes was problem with immediate gratification, which was satisfying your own needs at the expense of another, and problem with poor impulse control, acting out on your first thought and actions before thinking about what you're doing. So a lot of, in the beginning, I didn't really want to participate in the program, but after a while, and I started thinking about and changing the way that I thought, I enrolled in a program. And after I enrolled in a program, it was eye-opening. And then I also used the program to help minister and mentor other guys. And I later became a facilitator in the program.
Talk to me about how you feel about the position of trust that you had and how you violated that trust with these women that you raped.
Well, sir, I was given much in a very strong position of trust, and I violated it on every front, every principle, just putting myself first. and I know it was wrong now, and I see the error of my way. And since I've been incarcerated, I've often used myself as a platform when speaking in front of people, telling them about the choices and the consequences that I've made.
You know, Mr. Lee, I've been around a long time, and I wonder sometimes when I'm on this board and I hear people talking about how they want to help other people and how they want to make sure nobody does what they do. I'd like to know what thought you've given to the feelings of these women. I mean, do you think that since several of them were alleged prostitutes, that it was all right to do this to them? I'm trying to come to grips with why a police officer who had been in the field for, how many years were you a police officer?
10 years, sir.
10 years. You'd gone through you were a detective in the violent crimes unit, and you were out there committing violent crimes. Tell me how you've come to grips with that.
Well, sir, I haven't come to grips with it because when I look back over my actions, I'm appalled of my own actions. And I realize I did with the unthinkable, which shouldn't have been done. And I'm very sorry for my crimes that I've committed. And I've tried to take every class that I can to rehabilitate myself and to better myself.
You say you can't come to grips. Can you tell me? I mean, you said you were a ladies' man and you wanted immediate gratification. You could have gotten that in many other ways. Why with a badge and a gun and violence? You know, sometimes crimes are so horrible, they need some explanation. And I need to come to grips with why you did what you did to make sure you're not going to do it again. I mean, you didn't just get mad and kill somebody. You actually used your position of trust violently and raped several women. So tell me how you've come to grips with that.
In my mind, sir, I felt that if I offered them money or gave them what they wanted, and it was in agreements between us, that it was okay. That was my justification at the time. And I know it's not right.
But that ain't what you did. You didn't just offer him money. You forced yourself on him with a gun and a badge. I mean, yeah, I could maybe understand you going out and hire a prostitute. That ain't what you did. So let's get straight here. You didn't just go find a streetwalker and pay him $50. You used your badge and your gun to violently rape these women.
Yes, sir.
Am I wrong? Are you telling me something different?
No, sir. Two of the ladies were prostitutes and two of them wasn't.
Okay. So tell me what classes that you've taken have kind of helped you with this issue.
The first class that I was taking is when I prayed and I asked God to change me. I realized I had a problem, and it took me losing everything that I had to come to that conclusion. And I understand that change actually comes from inside, not from outside. And so when I started to the courses that I've took made me change the way that I thought. And my thinking followed my actions. So I enrolled in more classes. And then from that point, I enrolled in a sex offender treatment program. And through the past couple of years, I've enrolled in several Christian biblical classes because I figured that those were the classes that really centered me and made me understand myself. I've taken classes that entails boundaries, how to succeed on the street, living with God, trauma healing classes. I've taken a multitude of different classes. And then when the God really became real to me, and I started really applying what I knew during the years that I've been incarcerated.
What would you say to the victims today if you had an opportunity to speak with them personally?
I would actually look at them first and apologize sincerely and ask them to forgive me, even though they may not forgive me, but I'm obligated to ask them to forgive me, and that I'm sorry for the actions that I've taken and my behavior towards them, and that, I violated the trust of them, the community, and everybody else around me. And that if I could, I would do whatever it took to make amends to what I've done.
You say you're obligated to apologize to them. What do you mean by that?
A lot of times we don't get a chance to try to make things right, but if I had the possibility of making things right with them, I would try to. The man that I am now, I know I have to walk in forgiveness and mercy and grace and extend love. And the only way I can do this is if I had the opportunity to let them know how sorry I am for my actions. And that's what I mean by I'm obligated. I'm obligated to the man that I am today to do is right. I may have considered myself in the past to be a good man because as the standard that people use because I'm a police officer or you have this education or you have that. But even though I had all of those things, I wasn't a godly man, the man that I am today.
Were drugs and alcohol ever an issue with you?
No, sir, I didn't drink or smoke.
Have you ever had a mental health evaluation to determine what if any issues you may have besides the ones you've discussed with us today?
No, sir. The only mental health test that I've ever taken was apply for the department.
When you were going through your trial and everything, you didn't have any sort of mental health evaluation or anything like that were you released on bond or were you in jail after you got arrested?
I was released on bond.
While you were out on bond, did you or your lawyer ever get you a psychological evaluation or anything like that?
I think before my fourth trial, they scheduled me to take a lunacy evaluation before my fourth trial.
And did you take that?
Yes, sir.
And do you know what the results of the evaluation was?
I think the test was given to find out if I was competent to stand trial.
Right. I mean, I understand the reason for that. And I assume you were competent to stand trial because you went to trial.
Yes, sir.
But were there any other issues? Did you have any previous psychological issues? Generally speaking, when a lawyer suggests to the court that a person is not competent to assist counsel, there are some other extenuating mental issues that person has had in the past. Did you have any of those?
No, sir.
Did you have a hearing to determine whether or not you were competent?
Other than that lunacy hearing that they gave.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
Did you
Yes,
in fact have a hearing before the judge?
Yes, sir.
And the judge found you to be competent?
Yes, sir.
Did any doctor testify and say that you had any psychological issues or problems or anything like that?
No, sir.
Where will you be living if you are released? What's your plan to live and to work?
My plan is to live with my mother in New Orleans, Louisiana, on Holly Grove Street, the address that was provided. And my work, I have a couple of places that will interview me once I get out to determine, whether or not they want to give me a job or not. But I also have my resume if my parole is granted through the Louisiana workforce.
Okay. Have you ever worked anything other than a policeman?
Yes, sir.
What kind of work did you do before?
Well, my family business growing up is landscape and gardening. And then before I got on the police department, I worked as a waiter for the New Orleans Hilton in room service, and I worked hospitalities. And then in the military, I was a section chief and a manager.
What about work in prison? What kind of work have you done while you've been in prison?
When I first got in prison, I started working on a cleanup crew in the kitchen at nighttime. Then after that, I started working in a laundry for about 11 years, pressing clothes, washers and dryers. Then after that, I became a food server in the cell blocks, bringing the child courts to the offenders that was locked down. And then after that, I was security clerk and orderly for a few years. Then I started working back into landscape work, working outside for about a year and a half prior to me being transferred here to Hunt.
Are you, do you have trustee status?
Yes, sir.
How long have you been a trustee?
For about a year and 2 months now.
Warden, can you tell us anything about Mr. Lee?
Not really familiar with Mr. Lee. He came on last year, December, I think he told me, the year before, but he currently works at the soap plant.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the soap plant, which is at the front of the institution where trustees who we do have to trust to work in that area, because it's not directly supervised by a per se correctional officer, but by prison enterprise staff. So I guess no news is good news relative to Mr. Lee, because I've never met him prior to today. And I do see where I did sign a letter showing his self-improvement programs that he was involved in. I know you have a record of that.
Sure.
Yes. And I just say let his record speak for itself. But I have nothing bad to say relative to Mr. Lee.
Mr. Lee, you do have some law enforcement opposition. You have victim opposition as well. There's nothing you can do about those things. I just wanted to tell you that. You've had 4 write-ups since you've been in prison, which is good. I'm going to tell you, I really do have some concerns about what you understand, what you've done, and why you've done it. I'm going to sit back and listen to everyone else. You've got some supporters that are going to speak here today. So I'm going to go ahead and listen to them as well. Mr. Roche has some questions. Mr. Roche.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Lee. How are you?
All right, fine, sir.
Good. You said you're a police officer for 10 years.
Yes, sir.
And you worked in a hotel prior to that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. How long did you work in a hotel?
3 years.
And what were your responsibilities at that hotel?
I was a room service waiter and hospitality waiter, where guests would order food and I deliver it to their room and set it up.
Okay, good. Being in the hotel business for 3 years and being a New Orleans police officer sworn to serve and protect, you are tried and convicted of the rape of 4 individuals.
Yes, sir.
And I need an honest answer. Are those 4 the only females that you violated over that period of 13 years?
Yes, sir.
Sorry. So you're going to tell me the first time you did it, you were caught?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to run down a list of programs and tell me whether or not you've completed these programs.
Yes, sir.
Victim awareness.
Yes, sir. I completed.
Okay, I don't see it in your jacket.
You got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, while you're looking for that, have you completed Thinking for a Change?
No, sir. I couldn't. I was enrolled in that class when the pandemic hit.
Okay, so you hadn't completed Thinking for a Change.
No, sir.
Have you taken a course called MRT, Moral Recognition Therapy?
No, sir. I've never heard of that class.
Okay. And I think you need it. And I think you need to repeat the 4th phase of sex offender treatment. I have some concerns whether you really understand what you did to those victims. And the fourth phase of sex offender treatment is to facilitate the program so that you can regurgitate all the information that you got in the first three phases. I really think you need to facilitate that program for a period of time so that you can refresh yourself on the information that you received in the first three phases. Mr. Lee, you violated one of the most precious trusts that the community has. I would equate that to the trust that a 3-year-old has in his father to serve, protect, and make sure that no harm comes to those individuals. And you have violated, and it's not something to be taken lightly. I just want to let you know my thoughts on what you did.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you very much, Mr. Roche. Ms. Teresa?
First, we will hear from Ms. Ronique Lee, who's a sister.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Parole Board. My name is Ronique Lee, and I am the George Lee sister. I love my brother with all my heart, and as a result of his behavior, it landed him in prison. My brother and I have always been very close, but through the past 21 years, I have watched him grow into a man of faith. And this wasn't done alone, but with words and actions for him taking responsibility for what he did. And since my brother has been incarcerated, he has never ceased to share God's word with me. And during one of our conversations, my brother made a profound statement to me, stating that, sister, if we are not living for the Lord, we will be open to all schemes of the devil. So I choose to live for God, he says. And the Bible declares in 2 Corinthians 5:17, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creation. Old things have passed away and all things new. And I believe and I know my brother to be in Christ because he's a godly man. He's a rehabilitated man and a new man. If I could tell you so many ways that my brother has demonstrated and shown that he has been rehabilitated, I would also ask that you let his prison record show and speak for him that he has changed. And I also like to ask that he, from his rehabilitation and his record, that he will be able and ready to return back to his family and to society. And I pray all the victims that that receives God's healing, God's peace, and are able to forgive my brother for what he has done. And I also like to ask you, the parole board, to please look into his record, look into his heart, because my brother is a changed man. He is remorseful for his sins, and I thank you very much for your time and consideration in this matter. And you all have a blessed day.
Next, we will hear from Mr. Donald Diggs, who's the uncle.
Good afternoon. Now, certainly, can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Oh, okay, because the picture didn't come up. Okay. Certainly, I know
Can't see you
George is
very well. If
remorseful.
if you could pull your microphone down just a little bit, perhaps, we can only see the top of your head.
Oh, okay.
That, oh,
Is that better?
perfect. That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I had a head there. Good afternoon. Certainly, I know George is remorseful for the events that led to him being incarcerated. Now, no one can change the past, but it's my belief that George's recent past has shown him to be a model prisoner. He regularly participates in prison ministry. He studied religion. He studied religion and actually conducted services in a prison church. He has worked as a peer counselor. His certificates of achievement in various sports demonstrate discipline and that he can work with others. In 2014, he received the Louisiana Veterans Honorary Medal from Governor Bobby Jindal. He is a member of the Color Guard and the Honor Guard at Hunt. He has earned 15 hours toward a master's degree in religion, along with many other graduate hours outside of his degree program. His conduct evaluation is rated excellent, along with his evaluation on his job at the facility soap factory. George has the support of a loving family who prays that he comes home soon. Now, I'm his uncle, Donald Diggs, the brother of his mother, part of that loving and supporting family. As his father passed away several decades ago, I will be that male figure he can lean on. I am one who is committed to helping him in any way needed to ensure a successful reentry and continued success in normal society. Now, George has a high probability of success. See, George is no longer a young man, and he has a college degree, and he's well on his way to completing a master's degree. George has taken as many courses as he could while he was incorporated. And more importantly, he's become a lot more humble, and he seems to have developed a new focus on helping others. Now, should George be paroled, success will be all around him. His son, George IV, is a successful minister, married with 2 children. And as I intend to be an integral part in leading George to success, I'm just going to speak a little bit about myself to let you know how I believe and why I believe I can help this. I have absolutely no blemishes on my criminal record, absolutely none. I know how to be successful. I've been successful in my marriage of more than 47 years. I've successfully completed a 6-year tour in the Louisiana Army National Guard with an honorable discharge, ultimately working as nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare non-commissioned officer and battery training NCO.
Mr. Diggs,
Yes.
can you please conclude your statement?
Oh, okay. Well, having been a very successful leader, okay, I subscribe to the philosophy that one must make a plan and execute that plan to succeed. And I'm committed to help George be successful and productive in normal society. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
We will
you
now-
very much, Mr. Diggs.
We will now hear from Mr. Arnold Williams.
Good evening. Can y'all hear me?
Sure.
Good evening, everyone. I met
You're
George.
echoing. Do you have something else on over there?
And I'm committed
Give me 1 second.
to help George be successful.
Am I still echoing?
No. Well,
You need to turn off YouTube, Mr. Williams, please. You need to turn
Okay,
off.
give me a second. I'm sorry. Give me a second.
Thank you.
Okay, is that better?
Much better. Thank you, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry. My name is Arnold Williams. I met George as a freshman in high school. We both graduated from high school. Went out separate ways for a minute, ended up in the military, both ended up in the same military unit, served our country, was deployed for Operation Iraq in 91, came back home. I became a police officer before George did. He actually was in the reserve. Got George into the reserve, got George onto the police. I helped him get onto the police department. We rode together for a while. That George Lee I knew was a guy who would give you the shirt off his back. That George Lee would pool our money together to help unfortunate families during Christmas time. The George Lee that was arrested and convicted, I didn't know that George Lee. And I told him that. I went to see George right after his conviction, and he told me he let his family down and he let everyone down. I said, no, George, you let society down. I told George, you let society down. And that's bigger than me, that's bigger than you. That's first and foremost, you let those ladies down and they're part of society. But I just wanted to let him know that. Well, I didn't hear from George for about 3 months. Then he went to his facility where he was going to be permanent. He contacted me back and he says, hey man, listen, I thought about what you said. You were right. I didn't just let my family down. I didn't let myself down. I let society down. So, well, George, I can't tell if you're remorseful. I can't measure, till this day, I cannot measure remorse. I can't tell you if George is what's going on in his heart, but I can tell you, we can look at George's actions while he's been incarcerated for 20 plus years. And you can see what his actions are saying. I don't think that George will be an issue coming out. George has been trying to focus on what type of work he's going to do to contribute to society. I do believe that he's remorseful, but again, I can't measure remorse. You'd have to measure that by looking at the person's action. Again, and one thing I heard the judge say that he betrayed the badge. I told George that when it happened, he betrayed the trust. Yes, 32-year-old George did that. 55-year-old George, I don't see that in him. But again, look at his actions since he's been paying his price to society for what he did do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams. Ms. Teresa, do we have any other speakers?
No, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Lee, is there anything you'd like to say before the panel votes?
Yes, sir. Once again, I want to reiterate how sorry I am for my actions and how I betrayed the public, how I hurt the ladies with my crimes, and if there's any way I could take it back, I would. And my actions is just unexplainable, sir. But I pray that I'm given a second chance to just get out of here and do it right.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lee. Is the panel ready to vote?
Yes.
Mr. Lee, I've listened to you. I've seen your record. I've seen your family talk. I've seen your friend who spoke with you very honestly and very straightforwardly. And I just can't understand what happened here. There are just some crimes that a person commits that you have to look harder on than other crimes. You had a position of trust, and I think it was Mr. Roche. Someone said, your position of trust to the community is like a father to his young son. They hold your legs hoping for protection, and then you just beat them down. And you didn't do it just one time. You did it 4 different times. The judge, now you were tried 3 or 4 different times. You had mistrials. There were some allegations of prosecutorial misconduct, all sorts of things. Bottom line is a jury found you guilty and a judge sentenced you. The judge could have given you 100 years. But the judge chose to give you concurrent time. That may very well be because of the law at the time. He didn't expect you to be getting out as soon as you do it. You might be able to get out now. I don't know the answer to that. So I'm not going to go back and be concerned about those things. But what bothers me is one of my very first questions to you was, tell me what was going on. How did all of this happen? And you said I considered myself to be a ladies' man. Well, you know, you were a detective in the violent crimes unit. And you know that rape is not a crime of sex. It is a violent crime. It's a crime of rage. And I don't think that you have looked internally yet to recognize that. Mr. Roche asked you, had you taken Thinking for a Change, which is something that makes you look internally and try to realize things. Moral recognition training, how you think. Those are the kind of things that you need to do. I think you learned some things on paper when you took the sex offender treatment program. I think you learned some things that you can repeat back to other people, but I don't know that they really stuck with you. You have been, for most parts, a model prisoner. Your disciplinary record is good. You seem to do well while you're in prison, but you've got an issue there that I don't think you've dealt with yet. And I think that you need to. My vote today is going to be, there's law enforcement opposition, there's victim opposition, the nature of your crimes, the position of trust that you held at the time. For all of those reasons, I'm going to vote to deny your parole, but I'm going to encourage you to take the courses that Mr. Roche has recommended and suggested to you, so you can look internally to see what your crimes were really about and how they really affected the women that you violated and the trust that you violated. So that's my vote, and good luck to you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Roche?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lee, I'm not going to repeat every word that Ms. Marabella stated, but I echo every word and recommendation that he made to you. And my vote is the same, to deny and see if you can get the warden or the classification officer to enroll you in those classes that would help you to look inward and realize the magnitude of what you did to those ladies. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Ms. Wise?
Mr. Lee, I listened to your friend, somebody that's known you since the 9th grade, and he still didn't know this side of you. That's very concerning for me. I concur with my colleagues. My vote is to deny for the reasons already stated on the record. With a note that you have a good time date, about 2 years away, 2024. So I just encourage you to take advantage of this time here by taking as many programs as you can. Best wishes to you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wise. Mr. Lee, you have 3 votes to deny, but we've encouraged you to take some programs that might be able to allow you to look introspectively and kind of get a feel for really what happened. You've got great support. You're going to be getting out in 2024. So you've got a family to go to. I just hope that while you're there, you take advantage of some very good programs that we have there. So good luck to you, sir.
Thank you.
How do we unpack that, huh? I mean, it's a detective, a police officer, he held all these high positions, and then he gets prosecuted for all of those charges, and yet he still has it. He still is going to get out next year in 2024. That's because the law changes. Probably Act 122. It's quite hard to believe. I mean, he only finally got convicted in like 2001, I think. And he starts off the parole hearing by saying, I considered myself a ladies' man. How do you say that? What does this have? What? Mr. Mirabella really just hit it on the head, as did Mr. Roche. Mr. Mirabella said, this isn't an act of sex, it's an act of violence. And here you'll get a description of that violence. Thank you, Richard. And there are a lot of documents on this case because of all the appeals, but we won't go through all of them. We have a hearing after. We're going to do another one after this. But let's go through. Let's go through some of it. The evidence at the trial revealed that in the early mornings hours of March 28, 1999, CP testified that she was sexually assaulted by Lee. She was talking with a friend in his parked car on Terpsichore Street between Braun and whatever. Lee, dressed in street clothes, let's see if I can zoom in a little more for you. Lee, dressed in street clothes, approached the car and flashed a badge. CP's friend got out and went to the back of the car where he had a conversation with Lee. Lee then ordered CP out of the car and into his nearby car, a green two-door car with dark tinted windows. He drove her to South Peter Street, and on the way, Lee told her that he had been watching her big, fine ass. And he ordered her to pull her pants down and lean out the driver's side window. He then sexually assaulted her anally, and he was wearing a blue condom. CP hollered and screamed and asked him to stop several times. And this is what Mr. Roche is talking about. I'm sorry, Mr. Mirabella. It's an act of violence. Lee told her that if she could not stand it, she did not have any business being out there. Because she, the insinuation is that, I think more than insinuation, I think it was even known that she was a streetwalker, and that person in the car was not a friend but a client. But he finished, threw away the condom, and cleaned up with a paper towel. And these paper towels become the crux of his appeal, which maybe we'll touch on now, which he also threw away. Lee subsequently dropped her off at South Liberty Streets, and then CP admitted that she engaged in prostitution, but she had not been on a date that night. Okay? After the assault, CP could not control her bowels and had to change her underwear. CP identified photos of Lee's. Why do they bring that up? CP identified photos of Lee's personal car, a two-door green Lexus with tinted windows. A couple of months later, Lee showed up CP's apartment while she was with a date. Lee entered the apartment when CP answered his knock on the door. He was wearing a uniform with dark blue pants, big pockets. He threw her date against a wall, and CP did not report the sexual assault, until after she was taken to jail for public drunkenness. So he's kind of stalking her. He now goes to the house where she is on a date. He throws the man against the wall, and then it's not clear to me, but I think he then did something to her. And then she doesn't report anything, but she gets sent to jail. And at that point, she does say something. She saw on television that Lee had been accused of sexual assault and decided to come forward. You know, this case isn't so different from Daniel Holtzclaw. Was that his name? How many of you are familiar with? I mean, if you're a true crime person, you're probably familiar with that case. He received 263 years sentence, and really, it seems quite similar to a lot of these cases. I know that one of the cases he was charged with, he had just pulled over a woman just driving home. I think she was a grandmother, and she wasn't a streetwalker, but still, I mean, one gets 263 years, another is going to get out in 24 years, and he was a detective. Daniel, I think, was just a regular patrol officer, kind of new. So she saw it on the TV and decided to come forward, which is also how a lot of the women came forward in Daniel's case. She met with someone from the district attorney's office after she got out of jail. So she goes straight from jail to the ADA's office. She identified Lee in a photo lineup. DW, another career criminal with 2 prior convictions for prostitution and 1 for narcotics, testified that Lee did it to her twice. The first time was June of 1999. She was using narcotics with a friend, Tony, at his residence, and she later left and was walking when Lee offered her a ride in a dark blue Crown Victoria type vehicle. DW accepted, saying she needed a ride to New Orleans East. Lee drove towards Caliban Avenue, and out of habit as a prostitute, she asked him if he was a police officer. Lee countered by asking her if he looked like a police officer. He also asked her if she dated, which DW interpreted to mean as prostitute. She said she sometimes did. He said that he had $20 and asked what she would do for that. She said either oral or intercourse. He gave her a $20 bill. He pulled over underneath the North California Avenue overpass. He exited the car, came around to her door, and told her to stand up. When she stood up, he grabbed the $20 bill out of her hand and showed her his police badge. She said he had what looked like a police radio and gun on his side. She asked his name and said it was Ronnie Williams. She said he had her and that he could take her to jail. He also said he was not going to take her to jail, but that she was going to do whatever he wanted to do. And again, here's the added point of Mr. Mirabella. It's not for $20 you could know, but he's not into he's about control. He's about that. That's what gets him on. And he was a 10-year veteran. Lee told DW to lie across the seat, and she complied. He undid his pants and had intercourse with her. While doing so, he asked her if she ever had anal. She said no, and that she did not do that, and begged him not to do that to her, but he did. And he finished inside of her. Lee left the scene after the assault, warning her not to tell anyone. On second occasion, DW was leaving her aunt's nursing home. So now this is the second time. I mean, he's just at 10 p.m. and she was with her cousin. They were talking about getting money to go buy narcotics when Lee drove by in an Explorer now. DW told Terrell that she thought this would be a prostitution date. Terrell asked her not to go, but DW entered the vehicle anyways. Lee asked where she was headed. Lee said that she was going towards Winn-Dixie. A short while after entering the vehicle, DW asked him if she knew him. He said no, that he was not from here. After looking at Lee, particularly noting his bad skin, DW told him that she remembered who he was. She told him that he was the one who liked anal. Lee replied that it was about to happen again. There was never a discussion about money. DW noted that Lee did not immediately recognize her, but then recognized her hand, which was somewhat deformed. He told DW that he was going to have to end her life and that she was not going to be assaulted again. He was holding his gun, which was on his side, and threatened that he could get her. Lee drove her to Old Gentile Road in front of a junkyard. At this point, he had the gun in his hand, in his lap. Lee then did it to her forcibly, anally, using a condom, before letting her out of the car after assaulting her for a second time. Lee offered her $40. She said that for what he did, it should be $100. Lee then dropped DW off back at her aunt's nursing home. She told Terrell that there was a man out there pretending to be a police officer. She went to Terrell's apartment and took a shower. She telephoned the police the next day or within the week after she saw Lee on the television. It keeps going. There are just more and more and more. I mean, here's another one. You thought shaking her down. She offered him $200, but he did not take it. UH said the next thing she knew, Emery entered his car and drove away. Lee told her that they were going to work it out and said something about a female officer who was supposed to come to the scene and drive her down. UH saw the motion of Lee putting on a condom. He opened the passenger door and ordered her to bend over and pull down her shorts. She complied because she thought he was going to hurt her. By that time, he had begun to doubt that he was even a police officer. Lee penetrated her. She knew she had started her period and consequently knew she left blood on the seat. Afterwards, the defendant dropped her off. UH at first hesitated to tell Emery what happened, fearing that he would try to do something to Lee. She told him that Lee drove out of sight. I mean, here's another situation where he took a woman from another guy at the car, did that, brought her back. She didn't call the police because she thought no one would believe her. She moved back to St. Louis the next week because she did not feel safe, and she did not return until September 1999. After she saw the news report of him doing that to another woman, she felt guilty about not reporting hers, and she contacted the police. She was afraid to tell the police, fearing that they would blame her or make her out to be a bad person because she was a dancer. Emery contacted an attorney to accompany them to a meeting with police. She identified Lee in a lineup. Here's another one. It just goes on and on. Holy cow. I mean, he was a serial assault, it's even worse than I think they made it out in this hearing. On August 22nd, 1999, TC reported that a New Orleans police officer named C or G Lee sexually assaulted her. TC and Marvin were driving to a restaurant when Pepe had parked his car. Her car was a 1989 Ford Escort and began making funny noises. Oh, is this another testimony in the same situation? They pulled over so Pep could inspect the engine. Okay. Oh no, let me see. Actually, I think this is a different one. So they pulled. It's just the same scenario. Another pulled over car. Wow. While Pep was out of the car, Lee walked up in his uniform, carrying his gun and a flashlight, and asked what they were doing. Lee asked them both for identification and asked if they had ever been arrested. Lee ordered her out and told her to put her hands on the hood of her car. Lee handcuffed Pep. He handcuffs him, walks him to a car hidden behind some bushes about 50 feet away. He put him in the back seat next to a baby seat. Yes, a baby seat. A van was parked behind the car, and Lee sent the van off. Lee told Pep that he had a warrant out for him, that he was going to jail and he was going to call a cruiser. Oh, you can't even. This is just. Oh my gosh. Lee told TC that Pep had an outstanding arrest warrant. He told TC how fine and pretty she was and asked her what her husband would say if he knew she was out there. Lee asked her what kind of panties she was wearing, and she told him bikinis. He asked to see and then lifted up her dress. She still had her hands on the hood of the car. Lee claimed that she was fine and started to feel her buttocks. And he did more things. He asked her what she would do to keep from going to jail. He unzipped his pants and inserted his into her. He took off his gun belt at one point and put it on the roof of the car. He pointed his flashlight towards the direction of TC, where TC had seen some headlight minutes before. He then ordered her into the car, and he did it again in the back seat. When Lee expressed an interest in anal, she said the only thing she wanted him to do was get off of her. He got off of her, and she got out of the car. He made her stand by the car, and he ejaculated on the ground. Lee subsequently told her that she could be with him, that he would take care of her. He said he would offer her $300 the next day. She thought he was crazy, but asked him his name. He said his name was William Smith. Lee gathered up his gun belt and said he was going to be released. When he returned, he was nervous and sweating and was fixing his pants and gun belt. Lee said something about chasing someone and that he had to take the person to jail. This is, remember, when he's going back to get Pep out of the car. Lee unlocked the handcuffs on Pep and told him to walk away and not turn around. I mean, can you even imagine? Their car breaks down, a man and a woman, a cop shows up, handcuffs the man, puts him in the back seat, then sexually assaults the woman twice, then goes and just uncuffs him and sends him on his way. This was a cop. This was a detective. And he describes himself in the hearing as being a ladies' man. He was using his badge, a gun, and violence. Mr. O'Shea is onto something. He worked in a hotel, this guy, for 3 years. Really? What do you think he was doing in that hotel? And then he becomes a police officer. Mr. O'Shea said, oh, so it's the first time you did it, you were caught. And it goes on. I mean, this goes on. There's more. So one of the ways that he got his appeal, I'm not going to show the document, but I'll include the link. And again, thank you, Richard. One of the ways that he got, so many trials is, of course, they were able to try to discredit the witnesses. But there was also something interesting where one of the crime scenes, they found these napkins. And then in his pants, when they arrested him, they found the same napkins. And they had brought it up in trial without, I think, letting his defense know. And that was a problem. And then another problem was that they didn't have a search warrant when they found the napkins. So there was a lot of problem with those napkins, which got him these new trials. But he, the judge gives him a relatively, I guess, light sentence. But like what Mr. Mirabella says, he thought it would be long enough to keep him out. I think Act 122 is why he has a new chance. But again, you compare it to think that he will be out next year. It's scary. This guy is a predator. that was hiding behind his badge, his gun, his uniform. And he was just a menace to society, destroying the reputation of all those fine cops that just are out there to protect and serve. And the idea that this man actually will get out after less than 25 years at his young age, and it's scary. I have no other way to put it, but it's scary. And if you didn't see it, you might not believe it. But here you go. You know, if the media, I think, knew about this case, you'd think it would be on the news and something. It's a pretty big deal, but there's actually nothing you can find, you know, because I guess it happened in 2000, the trial. Internet wasn't really doing its thing, but man, this is it's quite scary. That's all I gotta say.
Okay, so Ms. Harrison, you're here today asking for a pardon with restoration of firearms for an offense for which you were sentenced on August 9th, 2010, aggravated second-degree battery. You received a 10-year DOC sentence, and that was suspended, and you were placed on 4 years active supervised probation. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Wise to ask you some questions.
Chelsea, how old are you at this time?
21, 22 years old, sir.
How old were you at the time of the crime?
It was right at my birthday, my 22nd birthday.
How old are you at this time now?
Oh, I'm 36.
Oh, 36, okay. All right. And tell this board today, why do you need a pardon?
I want to grow. I want to do better for my family. There's things I want to accomplish that my record has hindered me from being able to do professionally, personally. I want to be able to move forward from this experience.
When was the last time you were arrested?
Definitely not since I've been in trouble or was on any kind of probation. I have not had any encounters with the law.
Okay, I'm not talking about probation. When was the last time you was arrested? What about in 7/25/2009 for simple criminal damage to property? I see it was dismissed, but tell me a little about it.
In 2009?
Yes, it's Shreveport PD.
Yes, sir. My ex-husband and I were not getting along at the time, and he was telling me to leave, and I got in the car and tried to leave, and my car went into his car.
All right. Where are you working at this time?
Hancock Forest Management.
Ma'am, you broke up.
Hancock Forest Management. I'm a forestry accountant.
Hancock? Okay, Hancock Forest Management.
Yes, sir.
How long have you been working there?
I started in June of 2019.
Okay, so you've
About
been working
18
there.
months.
All right. How long did you serve probation? They found you guilty for aggravated second-degree battery, and you had
Yes,
a
sir.
sentence of 10 years, hard labor suspended, 4 years of supervised probation. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But is it the reason you need a pardon was for advancement into your work, or what? Or you just wanted to have something clear your record?
I would like to sit for the CPA exam. I earned an accounting degree from Louisiana State University in Shreveport in 2015. And I feel that I'm competent enough to sit for the exam and pass. And it's just something I would like to earn for myself professionally. And I enjoy it. So I would hope to be able to achieve that one day.
Okay, at this time of your crime, was drugs involved?
No, sir. Alcohol was involved.
What was the reason for that?
We were celebrating on the riverbank. Two groups of people ended up getting together that did not know each other. A fight broke out and things escalated fairly quickly.
Okay. And did you go to any kind of substance abuse or counseling treatment?
I believe I had to do anger management. And I was randomly drug tested through the probationary period.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Mr. Roche?
Ms. Harrison, how are you this morning?
Doing well, thank you.
Good. How many passengers were in the car at the time of the incident?
Total of 3.
Okay. And tell me exactly what object was thrown into the car that injured the victim.
It was a flat barbell weight that goes on the end of a barbell, one of those sticks you push up, could lift weights with.
What prompted the occupants of the car to do such a thing?
The driver hit a dead end and had to turn around. And on turning around, the car was head on.
So the occupants just thought it would be to their advantage to damage and possibly injure the driver of the car.
It was to damage the car, not necessarily to injure the occupant of the car.
I'm going to state what I think to be a practice, and maybe a policy of this board. You got off of supervision sometime in 2015 for this particular offense. Is that correct?
2014.
My record showing that you got off sometime in 2015. Is that right, Mr. Wise?
Yeah.
It's only been it's only been 5.5 years since you got off of supervision. You were convicted or pled guilty to a violent offense, and I would like to see anywhere from 8 to 10 year cleansing period where you had no involvement with law enforcement before I vote to grant and recommend to the governor a pardon for that particular offense. And you have not achieved a cleansing period of 8 to 10 years in this case. Madam Chairman? Madam Chairman, you're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Mr. Marabella?
Ms. Harrison, did you know Miss Laurie Dice?
No, sir.
How well did you know her?
That was the first night I had any encounter with her.
Are you aware that she is still having medical issues as a result of this?
No, sir.
You're not aware that she's still having problems with her eye and things like that?
No, sir, I'm not.
You graduated in 2015 from LSU in Shreveport, is that right, in accounting, with an accounting degree?
Yes, sir.
And you hope to sit for the CPA exam?
Yes,
Without a pardon, you won't be able to be licensed as a CPA? Is that the problem?
Yes, sir.
And when you say this was a barbell, we're talking about a pretty heavy weight, somewhere between 10 and 25 pounds?
It was 3 pounds.
3 pounds. So it was a dumbbell maybe, as opposed to a barbell.
It was a flat weight with a hole in the center to slide
Correct.
on. Yes, sir.
It was a 3 pound weight is what you
Yes,
tell
sir.
me. All right. What do you think about the fact that the victim is still having issues medically?
I feel terrible. I feel terrible that she's having to still go through things from this incident.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you, Mr. Marabella. So, Ms. Harrison, a co-defendant in this case was Sean Mercado.
Yes, ma'am.
Was that your husband
Yes, ma'am.
at the time?
No, ma'am.
And are you married now?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And you are in, where are you now? South Carolina, North Carolina?
Fort Mill, South Carolina.
South Carolina. So when did you move there? Did you move there for the purpose of the job?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Congratulations on your degree, by the way.
Thank you.
So I guess at this time, we'd like to hear from the folks who are here that want to speak on your behalf. And if we could hear from Mr. Gill first. Mr. Gill, can you unmute your microphone and then introduce yourself and tell us your relationship to Ms. Harrison?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Bobby Gill. I worked with Chelsea for about a year at a company called Arclitex Energy Services. It was an oil and gas company. We hired her in about June of 2016, and the company basically was shut down. The private equity group that owned it was out of Virginia, and on December 20th of 2016, they basically came in and let us know that they were shutting the entire company down. So that was a great Christmas present that year for all of us. But anyway, Chelsea was there till January of 2017. After that, she started kind of helping me on the side. I have a part-time CPA firm that I do side work for. And, you know, at the time, she was a single mother of 2. And so I have another full-time job. I actually have a few other jobs. So, you know, we would have to kind of meet, you know, nights and weekends just to try to kind of get everything situated and organized and all of our work scheduled. She's always brought her kids. You know, I don't have any kind of issues with anything like that, just given the nature of the business that I have on the side. So she would bring those around. She's always been a great mom. She's always been responsible. In the 6-7 months that she was with us, never was a day late. Anything ever popped up, she always called. She was always on top of it. Anything I asked her to do, she jumped on. And to answer the question a few of y'all had about whether she can sit for the CPA exam, the answer is definitely not with this. You can't have a felony and sit for the CPA exam. That's, I mean, they just won't allow it. in the state of Louisiana. So, and that's actually mostly nationwide. But she has helped me until I actually referred clients to her as well that I didn't have time to get to, and she was able to take care of them as well, and they were all happy with her. I guess that's about it, unless y'all got any questions.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Gill. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to speak to us this morning on
Sure.
behalf of Ms. Harrison.
No problem.
Thank you.
Do I
Miss-
just log out? Or?
Yeah, you just mute and then you'll be able to hear the rest of the proceedings if you just mute your
Okay.
microphone.
Okay.
Ms. Schnell, we'd like to hear from you. If you would introduce yourself, tell us your relationship to Ms. Harrison and whatever you'd like us to know.
Hi there, my name is Brianne Schnell. Bree is easier though, so someone can pronounce Brianne. I have known Chelsea for 18 years. I've known her since I was 13 and she was 18 years old. When I met her, I immediately just looked up to her and thought of her as somebody that I could look up to. She had goals in mind. She had a career that she wanted to pursue. I was also there, not physically there when the incident took place, but I saw her days after. And I just remember a shell-shocked, shaken, just ghost of the person that I knew. This had great impact on her. It took her a long time to understand just exactly what had been done. It took her a long time to wrap her mind around what happened, what the consequences could and were going to be of that. And she was devastated, not only for the victim of this crime that happened under the influence of alcohol, where people should not have been even driving or in any kind of situation like this. But once she got her head on straight about the situation, she took full responsibility for what was going on. And she did the time that she was supposed to. When she got out, she enrolled into LSUS as quickly as she could, and she completed her accounting degree program, all while being a parent. She was married, yes, but she was essentially a single parent to 2 young boys during the entire time that she pursued her education. She did, in fact, receive that degree in accounting, and I know that she very, very much would like to sit for the CPA exam. As a student in college now for accounting, we have the same hope to sit for that exam potentially together one day. I have a couple of years left, but you know, that's who we are. We've always been dear friends in that way. And she helped me find my passion with numbers and accounting. Chelsea is an exemplary person. She made a terrible mistake when she was very young, and she has worked every day to overcome that in every way that she can, by giving back to her community, by being charitable, by teaching her children to be good people and setting them up to where they won't be hanging out with crowds that are not quite the right kind of people. Her boys have instilled in them that pursuing education, pursuing success, and pursuing happiness above all from their mother. She has really, really done a great job with her now 3 boys, all boys, pray for her, please, in just teaching them to be better people, because she has worked so hard to become a better person through all of this. And I would hope that that would be evident and something that would be taken strongly into consideration with this.
Thank you. And are you in Louisiana?
I'm currently in Louisiana because my mother just got out of the hospital, but I actually live north of Houston. I attend Sam Houston State University.
All
Go
right.
Bearcats.
Well, thanks for being with us today. We appreciate your input. So Chelsea, is there a statement you'd like to make before we vote?
I'm on a lifelong mission to grow. It's been hard to progress and to find better employment, but I'm doing this for my kids. And I hope that I'm able to give someone else hope that there are second chances and you can still be successful after going through something as severe as this. has been the biggest lesson that I've had to learn. I've not repeated the same mistakes. And your choices are very impactful. And that's one thing I drill into my children is making wise decisions and knowing there's consequences to your choices. You can't always control what happens and what goes on, what happens to you. The only thing you can control is yourself and how you react to it. And I thank y'all for taking the time today and listening to me. And I just ask for forgiveness from the state of Louisiana, from all involved.
All right, thank you, ma'am. I think Mr. Wise, you ready to vote?
Yes, ma'am. At this time, I'm gonna vote to deny. Very, very strong law enforcement opposition, victims opposition. And I really want to see you have a little more cleansing time here for the next hearing. That's my vote to deny. Reason stated.
Mr. Roche.
Madam Chairman, my vote is the same for the very same reasons.
Mr. Marabella.
My vote would likewise be the same for the same reasons.
I would have a different view, Chelsea. My vote would be to grant your request, mainly because of the barrier to your career advancement. But you've received 3 votes to deny your application, all of whom have expressed a desire to see a little bit more cleansing period, stay out of trouble, continue doing well, reapply when you can. And I do believe you might have a different outcome the next time. I think it's my understanding that neither in Louisiana or South Carolina that you have to be conviction free to sit for the CPA exam, but you probably have to answer some very difficult questions. And the fact that your conviction wasn't related to your profession would help you. So good luck to you. Good luck to you.
I'm really happy that Ms. Renatza corrected the facts about this coworker, Bobby Gill. Wow, what an embarrassment, in my opinion. He's sitting here at a pardon hearing. It's a pardon hearing, dude. Have some respect for the court. Have some respect for the friend that you're sitting here to represent. It's funny. It's like, they're trying so hard to look like they have their act together. But if the person that's coming here for your pardon hearing to talk on your behalf is driving while looking at a video, it's not like you're on a headset and you're looking down at a video. Are you nuts? You're breaking a law while being like a witness at the pardon hearing. And he goes on about rambling. It's like, we had a job, but it got shut down. But she worked for me for 8 months and she has kids, but we'll do another job and she can come for the weekend and at nights. And kids, they don't bother me. That's okay. She can bring them around. I was like, what are you talking about? And then he goes on and states, and you cannot take the CPA test if you have a felony. And Mr. Renatza corrects it at the end. And I was Googling it. And of course, it varies by state, but I did not find anywhere that it says that you cannot take a CPA test unless you have a record where, and Mr. Renatza touched on this, where you had done something like where you stole from your clients. If you had a crime where you had taken from your fiduciary, then you can't. But it's not a blanket statement. So the guy is like, wow, just a real, and I know I'm going on him, but sometimes I feel it's deserved. And it's, it's just really, it seems like someone who shows like zero remorse, like none. She didn't know anything about the victim. She didn't know. She's like, yeah, whatever. I don't know. She was hurt. And you want to find out hurt? I mean, she was more than hurt. Like, her whole life was wrecked because this girl decided to throw a weight, a 5-pound weight. Why is it not zooming in now? Into a stranger's car, smashing the windshield and hitting her in the face. And here it is. As a result of the attack, Miss Dice suffered a broken cheek and jawbone, a broken nose, and loss of vision in her right eye. She has undergone numerous surgeries, including 4 facial reconstruction surgeries, an eye surgery, in which she has had 5 plates and 22 screws implanted in her face. 22 screws and 5 plates. This literally, she is so lucky it didn't kill her. She has had to have orbital floor of her right eyes replaced twice. Miss Dice, who has just graduated from high school. She's a little girl. She was unable to attend college for the next year while she recovered from her injuries. She was acting in this hearing like, oh yeah, I don't know, I just, whatever, what's the big deal? It was like, where's the remorse? Did he even say sorry? I didn't catch that. And then her other friend comes on, Bree, and goes on a whole tangent about how when it happened, she couldn't wrap her mind around it. And it took her a long time to wrap her mind around it. It's like, okay. What are you trying to I don't understand the point, the takeaway there. It's wrap your mind around that you threw a weight into the windshield of an oncoming car and nearly killed someone. And then only then you were able to, the judge ended up giving her really a gift. Now, you can argue in each way she shouldn't have gotten a huge sentence. A life wasn't taken. She was also, just a dumb girl that didn't understand what throwing a 5-pound weight into a car while they were driving, also at high speed. So it had the forward momentum. I think she did serve 6 months in jail, though, before she got bailed out. So that I'm sure, it wasn't like she didn't spend any time in jail. There's a full thing here. I'm just not going to go through it. It's kind of long and tedious. But thank you, Rich, for including it, and I'll drop the link below. But man, I'm glad they denied the pardon hearing. It seemed quite premature, I guess you would say. Yeah. Whoops, what just happened? Okay. You guys want to do another one?
Felony offender offenses: aggravated oral sexual battery and forcible rape. Sentenced to a total of 40 years. Parole date August 1st, 2021. Good time July 17, 2031. Full term July 11th, 2038. Is this information correct, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Marabello.
Thank you very much. Mr. Suit, my name is Tony Marabella. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Your case was assigned to me, so I'll begin this interview process. Mr. Suit, how old are you, sir?
72.
Okay. And how long have you been in prison on these charges?
Since 2000. So 23 years.
2000, so 21, 22 years?
22 years.
Tell me, what programs have you taken while you've been in prison that you believe have been most helpful to you?
Most helpful to me has been while I was here at Angola in the early stages was Cage Your Rage, anger management, because I had a hard problem, controlling myself with the anger, and other programs that helped me was the BETG, which is Behavioral Education Therapy Group of Sex Offenders. When I learned the risk factors and faced those risk factors, I realized the problems that I had. This just didn't happen because of one reason. It happened because of multiple reasons.
Talk to me about the problems that you learned that you've had.
The problems I had was first was a compulsive addiction, and
compulsive addiction to what?
To drugs and alcohol, but through the help of the mental health department at Rayburn, we worked through that, and it's curtailed. I have no desire.
No desire for what?
No desire for alcohol or drugs.
And how did you accomplish that?
By prayer, mainly. I'm a senior in the Bible college here. And through a lot of prayer and a lot of work and facilitating other groups, I worked through that, and I put that in my past where I don't even think about it anymore.
Tell me how you intend on, assuming that you get out, how do you intend on making sure you don't go back to alcohol and drugs?
I have, believe it or not, I have a wonderful brother who will hold me accountable. He's a retired law enforcement officer, and I have other support. Support is the main thing. You can get really involved with a negative support group, but thank the Lord that I have a very positive support group.
What kind of drugs and alcohol were you using?
I was really fond of tequila, and I was very fond of cocaine.
And how often were you using drugs and alcohol?
Maybe once or twice a month. Sometimes more, depending on the time I had off from work.
Mr. Suit, tell me what you have thought about what you've done to your daughter. I haven't heard a word about your crime. You're talking about drug addiction. I mean, what you did to that young woman is horrible. You tell me what you've thought about that and how I should be in a position to release you today or vote to release you.
There's a day that goes by where I don't regret and pray and remember like you say, the atrocity of what I did. That to put it into words is really, really hard for me to do. I have more regret in my heart for that I can really express to you. It wasn't an intended thing. It was a thing that just
What do you mean it wasn't intended? I mean, this went on for
it
years.
wasn't something that I planned to do. It wasn't something that, oh, I'm going to do this to my daughter. No, there's
But
things
it went
that
on for years.
this thing that happened to me in my youth is also a residual of what happened there. I was molested at 3 years old. And that continued up until I was 7 or 8 years old. And by older peers and by friends of family, you know, they took advantage of me, and it just all stemmed together. You know, the addictions, the anger, the pain that I had, and the more I had to rely on my daughter for my help, you know, because I was mentally incapacitated at the time.
What effect do you think this has had on your daughter all of this time?
I think that she went through a lot of pain. I mean, I was the adult. I'm responsible. She wasn't responsible. And I'm still responsible.
You know, it bothers me a little bit when I read your report. Now, I know it's been 3-4 years ago, but in explaining what happened, you described what happened between you and your 9-year-old daughter, and then when she was 11, as a sexual affair.
No,
how can you say that?
That shows a word that I chose to show the delusion that was in my mind at the time that it was happening. It wasn't reality. I know that, but I didn't know how else to explain it. It was a delusion that I felt that wasn't true.
What would you say to me today when I get ready to vote that would make me feel comfortable that something like this isn't going to happen again?
It'll never happen again. I'll never be in that frame of mind again. That person is gone. That person doesn't even exist anymore. The day that I accepted and received Christ as my Savior, and I left all that at the cross with Him, I'm not dragging that back. I live my life for Him and my daughter and a future that could be built on.
What would your plan be? Where are you going to live if you get out of prison?
Immediately would be in Bogalusa at some friends of mine's house until I can get on my feet and get a place of my own.
Well, there's nothing you can do about what I'm about to tell you, but you do have opposition from law enforcement. Victim opposition is obviously there. Is there anything that you would say to your daughter today if she were listening to you?
Well, yes. Look, I'm very, very, very sorry for what happened. And I regret it every day. If there was a way that I could change it, I would. And as far as I know, in the communication that she has no opposition for my release. Matter of fact, I was informed that she wants me to be released.
All right. Thank you. That's all I've got, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Bonnie Jackson.
Mr. Suit, you say if you could take it back, you would. You say you recognize the harm done to her. I'm not sure that you really do, but don't you think it would be harmful to her for you to be released?
Harmful to her?
Mentally, psychologically, emotionally, in light of what you've done to her?
No, because that person doesn't exist anymore.
For her, he does. Where did you get the idea that she was in favor of your being released?
Communication with family members.
Whose family? What family members told you that she was in favor of your getting out? And what was their relationship with her?
Uncle. I mean,
your stepson was also a victim. He suffered at your hands from regular beatings. He doesn't move you out.
My
Go ahead, yeah.
My stepson?
Mhm.
I don't have a stepson.
Do you have a son?
I have a son, yes, John David Suit.
Yeah, well, he's the one. He's the one who said that he was, brutalized, beaten regularly.
Regularly, he was only with me for a week while his mother was doing other things.
Okay. She was in rehab. And she had to leave rehab to come and rescue him because you had beaten him so badly. Don't remember that?
No.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Suit. That's all I have.
Okay, at this time, Mr. Stoops, anything you'd like to say to the board before we vote?
All I can say is that the person that you're reading about and the person that I am today is not the same. I've gone through a lot of changes. I've gone through a lot of programs with a lot of help from the professionals available here and at Rayburn. And with their help and with God's help, I've changed. I'm not that person anymore. My mind doesn't even function the same way that it did before. Before, I couldn't even answer your questions. I was very, very introverted. I'm not that way anymore. I'm open. I try to answer the best that I can. I'm kind of taken aback by some of the things, but I'm trying to be as open and honest as I can.
Okay.
If there's anything else you want to ask me, I'm free and willing to answer anything that you have.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Stoops. At this time, the board will be voting. We're going to be starting with Mr. Tony Marabella.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Mr. Suit, I want to commend you for having accomplished some things while you've been in prison. I mean, you've done a lot of programs, you've taken a lot of courses, you've done a lot of positive things. I just get the impression that you don't understand the significance of what you did to your daughter. You answered my questions and you talked about you. Very little was said about your daughter. And it certainly was said like, well, when that happened, you committed a horrible crime against this young woman. It has ruined her life. I don't think you seem to understand that. I don't know where you got the idea that she wants you out. That's not the impression I have. Your stepdaughter doesn't want you out. Your son said he wouldn't mind you being out, only so you could see how well he's done without you. Sometimes the crime and the horror that someone perpetrates on someone that lasts so long outweighs the good that a person has done while he's been in prison. I don't think that I can vote in good conscience to let you out based upon all of the things that I have read in this report and all the things that you've said today. So my vote today would be to deny your parole.
Okay, Ms. Jackson.
Mr. Suit, you have taken a lot of programs, but I don't know if the programs have really done what they were designed to do. When you talked about, well, I learned about my addictive behavior, you directed that towards alcohol and drugs. You did not direct it towards your behavior towards your daughter. Because I read somewhere back when this happened and you were talking to someone that you had this attraction to your daughter. And I don't think anything has been done to really help you understand. There aren't words to describe how awful this was. And she suffered her whole life because of this. So because of the seriousness of the crime, the extreme harm to the victim, her adamant opposition from her, not only her, but your stepdaughter and your son, and law enforcement opposition across the board, Mr. Suit, my vote today is to deny.
At this time, Mr. Stoops, you have 2 votes to deny, and I also want to vote to deny because of a strong law enforcement opposition and victims' opposition to this case. Thank you very much.
He puts on his little pouty face, a little roach. So pathetic. I love it. I love when Miss Jackson came in there. I was like hoping, and she just brought the hammer down. Sorry, Miss Jackson, another mic drop. Yeah, I'm taking notes, and they hit on a lot of the points that I bring up so often and wrote down. The classic things that we hear all the time. I'm sorry that it happened. I regret it every day. If I could take it back, I would. It's like, are you kidding me? He makes up this story. Oh, I heard she wants me out. Really? You think you're going to just pull a quick one like that? Oh, yeah, she really wants you out. Who did he hear that from? An uncle? It is great. He doesn't have one supporter show up. The board just rips him a new one, and he sits there trying to put this little manipulation on, like, poor old me. I'm just this poor old guy. He really goes into, there was no point where he could show empathy, where he was able to. He went straight in, like the board said. As soon as it went into the questions about her, what he did to his daughter, he starts talking about when he was 3 years old. It's not the first time we've seen that. He actually put in a report when applying a few years ago that he was in a relationship with her. And he says, oh, that was that. I just wrote that down because that was what I had been thinking at the time. And I got to tell you, he just made that up. It is not, I don't believe that for a second. I believe he's still, that he believed that at the time he filed for his application. It's very clear in the application what you're supposed to write. He didn't write, I thought I was, that means even up until recently, he thought that. And you heard it in the answers today. We hear this, and it's like, it's just so bizarre. He said, I was the adult. I'm responsible. She wasn't responsible. And it's like, what? Of course she's not responsible. Why would you even say that unless you think she is? And they don't realize that it comes out in the way that they say these things. It comes out the truth of how they think. Even in his hearings, I have to rely on my daughter for help. What is it? What? He actually wrote, I had a sexual affair with my 9-year-old. An affair. I'm glad his son was able to leave a statement. And he's pretending like, I have no idea what happened. I only had him for 1 week. Like, okay, yeah. Right, okay, buddy. Now, Richard says that the records show that he's no longer in prison, but he couldn't find it, and I couldn't find anything either. I don't know for certain, but it might mean that he is no longer on this earth because he didn't get paroled. So that's possible. It's possible we just don't ever have to worry about this roach hurting anyone again. He got a 40-year sentence. He's 72 years old. His full term date's 2038. I think that this is one of those situations where we can say we are safe. And I am glad how the board handled this. And, it's so many times we do see a lot of the worst of the worst. They all have similar stories. And he just was not able to connect to how evil he is. And it's part of why we do this. We got to see that roaches, that monsters, that evil does exist. With that, I'll let you go.